When Pokemon Detective Pikachu's first trailer came out, I was at my day job, meaning I had to watch it on the small screen of my cellular telephone. I did so giddily, and then again, and again, and again. I stood up, walked over to one of my colleagues who I talk about these sorts of things with, and said, "Dude, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, if it is half as good as I want it to be, I will see it twice." And he said, "Cool," and then waved me away. Classic workplace interaction. But I really meant it. I was so excited by what I had seen in that first trailer that, I made sure to never see any subsequent ones and just go in with unreasonably high expectations. And when those initial headlines from folks who saw it early proclaimed it to be a thing of wonder, oh man, I was hype. So, of course, I saw it at the first local showing Thursday evening. If paper tickets were still a thing, this would be the part where I pulled out the ticket from that show, and then the one for the Saturday morning showing that followed. But they're not, so I don't have that. But I did get these promotional Pokemon cards, the first Pokemon cards I've gotten in probably 15 years, so let's see how I did, and hope I don't have to do this again, because these are all I have. It's Detective Pikachu Inside Out. That's awesome. Okay. No, that's over with. Hello, everyone, anyone, and welcome to the Week I Review. You can call me a guy who lost thousands of hours to Pokemon games in his youth. And today I'm obviously talking about Rob Letterman's new movie, Pokemon Detective Pikachu. We established that I went in with high expectations, but what I found so fascinating is that my expectations had very little to do with how I ultimately felt about the movie. Expectations are wants, would likes, nice to haves. What instead mattered here were my requirements, my needs, must-haves. So let me ask you, what do you need from your cinematic nostalgia trip? Let me know in the comments down below. I needed joy. No, and I knew that this movie was about a kid who had lost his father, maybe. So it's not like I was asking for a 104-minute laugh riot, but I did need this movie based on a series of games about young children being thrown out into the world alone to enslave wild animals and force them to fight for their lives to, not go full-on grimdark. Rhyme City, as presented in that first trailer, looked like it was pretty dark, but the grim was more up in the air. I mean, Shazam is surely a comedy and ostensibly fun for the whole family, but it also features people's heads being eaten. So I liked Shazam, but I needed there to not be any head eating in my animal battle movie, please. Fortunately, I can report that no heads are eaten, and also that the animal battling is actually the exception to the rule. Pokemon are much more heavily integrated into the world here. Basically, every human has a Pokemon partner. Police officers, journalists, doormen, they're everywhere, just hanging out with their people or even doing their own thing. Rhyme City has banned battling entirely and brought Pokemon from the wild into society. Pokemon and humans live and work together in harmony, which means we get to see a lot of them. There are a couple, like the traffic guard Machamp, who have a clear purpose. Most of them don't, but they do hit the other thing I needed. That the Pokemon be cute. When protagonist Tim Goodman's love interest Lucy comes into the picture, she's an aspiring journalist furious that she's being asked to do listicles about the 10 cutest Pokemon. A nonsense assignment because they're all cute. And yeah, for a Pokemon movie to succeed in my eyes, I have to enjoy the act of seeing Pokemon because, oh my gosh, it's a Snorlax / Eevee / Bulbasaur / etc., but in real life, kinda. It was critical to me that each time a new Pokemon came on screen, I felt something, and that something was aw. And it's largely successful. One thing that I think is key to this is the fact that Pokemon are tiny. You never actually get a sense of this from their more traditionally animated iterations because everything is so unrealistic in proportion. But when they're transplanted to the quote unquote real world, their size becomes immediately apparent. Pikachu is 1 foot 4 inches, and it looks to me like they went with that height. And though this guy is canonically just under twice that, he's probably more like 2 feet tall in the movie and nearly as wide. Small things are cute, objectively. However, there is another part to this, and that's whether or not CGI renditions of beloved characters are distracting. It's a finer line, one that's a bit more personal because everyone has a different threshold. I would venture to guess that I am less forgiving than most, but it's not like I can't be fooled by quality work. I mean, I often am. Pikachu himself falls into that latter camp. He looks amazing both from a design perspective and also from a digital integration one. The vast majority of the time, you can forget that he is just a bunch of triangles, and the couple of iffy moments don't spoil the general illusion. I mean, I'm sure that as much work went into making sure Pikachu was perfect as most of the other Pokemon combined. He is the most prominent and important. He has to work, and he does. And I love him. But then you have, say, Mewtwo, who gets a fair share of screen time as well, and doesn't look great. First up, he's not cute. Of course he's not, and it might actually be weirder if he was, but he still doesn't hit that checkbox, and that makes the bigger problem harder to forgive. He doesn't look real. At all. There is never a fraction of a second where Mewtwo looks like he is a part of the human world. Any given shot of him looks like what I would expect from Square Enix in a Final Fantasy Pokemon movie, which is to say good 3D animation, but 3D animation nonetheless, and that goes for a lot of the Pokemon. A few others, almost exclusively furry ones like Psyduck, Snubbull, and Jigglypuff, have moments of reality, but everything with visible skin or scales or what have you, while they may be above Nintendo video game fidelity, you could probably get those Bulbasaur models running in real time on an Xbox One X. And I know that, it looks like a video game has long been an offensive statement in CG, but video games are looking really gosh darn good nowadays, especially with non-humans, so it's not quite the insult it once was. But when the humans are actually real, it's a little frustrating that I don't feel wrong making that comparison. It's not always an issue, but it is sometimes, and it's definitely something that stuck out more on my second viewing. But despite that, Pokemon Detective Pikachu did what I needed it to do. What happened beyond that was always going to be gravy. Pretty good gravy. I think that a lot of the headlines about this have been a bit much, because to be absolutely clear, Pokemon Detective Pikachu is not some kind of revelation. It is not the best video game movie ever, nor is it even the best movie based on a video game. They are different things, and Scott Pilgrim and Ace Attorney, respectively. But it makes good on that central, seemingly kind of odd casting choice. I have long been a Ryan Reynolds fan, so I didn't really need to be won over, but I genuinely think that he nails it. Though the marketing gimmicks might have led one to believe that this was Deadpool for children, it's not. That marketing may have been cynical, self-referential, and/or ironic, but the movie is absolutely none of those things. And how could it be? Pokemon isn't about the loss of innocence and childlike wonder. It is about keeping those things at all costs. A Merc with a mouth, but it's Pikachu, would destroy this. And yeah, Ryan Reynolds' Pikachu has a mouth. The fundamental joke is how incongruous those quips and the voice they're delivered with are from the fuzzball they come out of. And sometimes those punchlines are clear allusions to the actual real world. Most blatantly with this bizarre reference to climate change that both doesn't make sense in context and undermines its own point by the scene's conclusion. I'm really not sure what they thought they were accomplishing there. But even they are technically still in world. No one is ever turning to the screen to address just how ridiculous things are. Not even with that brilliant Mr. Mime sequence that you see part of in the trailer. There's a little bit that feels like it, but it stops being jokey pretty fast. And thank gosh, because serious self-awareness would bring the whole house of cards down. If you think too hard about the logistics of any Pokemon narrative, you end up with all kinds of how questions. In anime and video games, you can brush these off pretty easily. But in a real world sort of thing where the non-Pokemon protagonist is actually an insurance appraiser, it's like, okay, so there's insurance here. Now let me go down a rabbit hole thinking about the implications of insurance in a world with Pokemon. Except I don't want to do that. I mean, who do you think I am? Matt Pat, who is extremely nice, by the way. I met him at the Nintendo Switch unveiling event a couple years back. Super cool dude. Let me hug him. No, I overthink things, as you can tell from this channel, but I don't want to overthink this thing. And so I actively fought against the thousands of little questions that were constantly being inspired, both about the world in general and also the narrative. There is so much here that just doesn't make a lot of sense. The only way you get through it is to not worry about it, because the writers clearly didn't. And seeing the film a second time, like 36 hours later, made that a little more difficult because I could see so clearly where the pieces didn't quite fit, and the initial wonder of each new Pokemon encounter had faded just a little bit. But I was heartened to know that my enjoyment was not purely fueled by nostalgia, because even so soon after, when Pokemon Detective Pikachu works, it really works. It hit me right here. And even when it doesn't, gosh, those Pokemon are cute. 7.3 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, that is great. If you didn't, if you want to see more, please subscribe. I hope to see you next week.